Welcome to the Pat White Show. Well, what do you say we head back to the Wayback Machine and let's set it for the year 1975. Now, that was 50 years ago. Do you remember what you were doing 50 years ago? Well, I remember 50 years ago, I just arrived in Fort Wayne after leaving active duty in the Air Force, ended up joining the Air National Guard, flew with them until I retired. But 1975, my first year in Fort Wayne, went to see a movie. Movie theaters was behind Glenbrook Mall over there on Fernhill area, and saw a movie, and that movie I have never forgotten. Two movies I have seen in my life that have affected me, the outcome has affected me, and I'll tell you which the two movies. One of them is the movie I went to see in 1975. The movie, Jaws. That's right. People were lined up to see this Steven Spielberg movie, Jaws. Richard Dreyfuss, Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw, and Murray Hamilton. Murray Hamilton, remember, he was the mayor of Vanity Island. So now you kind of know who the characters were. But the movie was Jaws, 1975. The theaters were just packed with people. Take a look at what people go to theaters. Want to see this movie. And it had a music, the musical opening. Remember with the girl, jumping in, taking off her clothes, going skinny dipping in the ocean? And that movie starts, the music starts to sounding, and she's swimming along. And you hear that pulsating music. Steven Spielberg. Yeah, things weren't going as well as you think when he was making that movie. Spielberg was a young director. Didn't have a lot of legs, as they say. He built this shark machine. And you can see what it looks like. And it worked pretty good on the land. Worked pretty good in regular old water. Trouble was, he put it in seawater and it didn't work real good. They had a lot of problems with that shark and a lot of problems shooting the video for that. That shark was not cooperative. It sank one time. I mean, there was a lot of issues involving that shark. But the shark, and the movie came out pretty good, right? Everybody saw the movie. Everybody was scared. That was 50 years ago. Well, it turns out NBC on June 20th, which happens to be tonight, is going to be repeating the movie Jaws. Now, there's a couple of things about Jaws that caught my attention. Roy Schneider, great lines. I think we're going to need a bigger boat. It's a classic line that came out of that movie. Richard Dreyfuss, Hooper, the marine biologist, whatever he was, and then of course there was the mayor of the island, and his Mayor Vaughn, I think his name was. He wanted those beaches open because that's the time people came there. The beach is open. He wanted people out there swimming, and well, didn't work out quite the way they'd hoped. But the big thing about that movie was Robert Shaw. Now, Robert Shaw, if you remember, he played in the movie From Russia with Love. Remember, he was the assassin. I think his name was Donald Red Grant. Muscular, just He-Man kind of guy, in From Russia with Love back in 1963. And he also then played in 1973 in the movie The Sting. Remember, he was loyal. Doyle Lonigan was his name. He was the pigeon. He was the one they were going to take. Well, he was offered the script in 1975, and he didn't want to do it. He said, no, I'm not interested in this movie. But his wife and his secretary said, look, this is the greatest movie we've seen since you did the James Bond film From Russia with Love. This is a movie you've got to do. He wasn't going to do it in the beginning, but they talked him into it. Turns out he was the right guy for the movie. The thing about that movie that caught my attention was that when they were sitting in the boat and he was talking about being on the USS Indianapolis and talking about the sinking of the boat and what happened. And that's, for the most part, was actually true what he said, because I talked to one of those people that survived the Indianapolis some years ago on the radio. But he gave a soliloquy. Sitting there listening to that soliloquy was the most powerful one I think I've ever heard delivered on any movie. That's one I'll never forget. Talking about the shark and the eyes and being in the water. And He never missed a beat. I don't know how he memorized that entire thing, but he did. It was brilliant. And then all the stuff that went on about the shark chasing him and getting back at the shark and trying to win, and ultimately the end. It was a great movie, but as I said, only 2 movies have affected me, and I ain't the only person they affected. First movie I ever saw that affected me was the movie Psycho, and it still bothers me to this day because I do not, in my shower, I have a clear glass shower door. I have that, yep. And I saw that years ago. I still have a clear glass shower door. And if I go to a hotel, I make sure I double lock the bathroom door when I go into a hotel. Yep, there you go. That's Psycho. Now, Jaws, I do not go in the ocean. I took my kids, my wife to Hawaii. They were swimming in there. They were in the key off a boat swimming. I ain't going in. You see, because when you get in the ocean, you are no longer the top of the food chain. Yes, you are not at the top. You are now subject to other animals who are above you. One of them is a shark. So there's an answer. And apparently a lot of people were that way because back in 1975 when the movie opened, people around America would not go in the ocean from sea to shining sea. People would not go in the ocean. I was talking to my wife about this. She said, yeah, we used to go. She's living down in Florida then. She said, we used to go to the beach. The women would go and play in the water. The men would not go. And this was she said they were manly men. Wouldn't go in the water. So there's sharks in there. So yes, I have been scared of sharks since this movie. And I don't shower unless I got a clear shower curtain or a glass shower door because of Psycho. I'm a little different. Okay, fine. Those are the things that bother me, those 2 movies. But now Jaws and the movie and all the things that went with it. You see, remember the lady swimming in the water when the shark got her? All those things happened in that movie. And guess what? For the 50th anniversary, they're reliving it and turning it over again and allow you to experience once again one of the most frightening movies of all time from a guy, Steven Spielberg, when he was a fresh young lad trying to get himself started, almost failed, but ended up producing one of the most blockbuster movies of all time. The movie from 1975, Jaws. So did you happen to be among the 2.3 million people that watched the Indiana Fever against the Connecticut Sun a few days back and saw the Donnybrook that happened? Well, the Fever won the game by roughly 17 points, but that's not the point of the game. No, the point of the game was the action of people against people, or as we like to say, the pounding that Caitlin Clark has been taking from teams in the WNBA. Did a little look up on this thing. There have been 6 flagrant 1 fouls called to the WNBA this year, and every single one of them has been on Caitlin Clark. Really? Make you going, why is that? Because they don't like her. They're jealous, whatever the term is. But Caitlin Clark doesn't just move the needle for the WNBA. She is the needle. She's the reason that 2.3 million people are tuning in. And when she was injured and was missing for 5 games, the television ratings for the WNBA went down 51%. Because that's what people want to watch. She's the modern day Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Lou Alcindor. Who else you want to name? We could go back as far as you want to. Wilt Chamberlain. Any one of those people. She's the one people want to go see, and that's what they're doing. And frankly, when games were coming up and she wasn't in, tickets were going for like $9. When she's in, the tickets are going for hundreds. So the game against Connecticut was interesting. And frankly, it got a little bit ugly. Especially when Caitlin Clark was beat up by a J.C. Sheldon. Came up and, well, poked her in the eye. And then during the fracas, a young lady called Marina Marbury came up and knocked Caitlin to the ground. Big fouls were called, and nobody was ejected. But then, toward the end of the game, with roughly about 24 seconds left, Miss Sheldon stole the ball, was running down court to do a layup, and a lady by the name of Sophie Cunningham. She's the she's a lovely young blonde lady who came in and essentially took down Miss Sheldon in a hard foul, as they call it. She tackled her, took her down. Let's be honest. Then a fight broke out, a melee. Well, Miss Sophie Cunningham is the enforcer. That's right. She's the woman who's brought in to protect their star, Caitlin Clark. Now, enforcers exist in every league, whether it's football or basketball, even hockey. Remember the great one, Wayne Gretzky? There were enforcers to protect him. Turns out Miss Sophie Cunningham was the enforcer to protect Caitlin Clark. And after the game was over, you know what? Her jerseys sold out on Fanatics. That's right. Her jerseys sold out. People are going, yes, she's the enforcer. Well, now the coach for the Connecticut, it's 17 points down. That shouldn't happen. Well, guess what? It did happen. And as a result, the WNBA has come out and literally fined Connecticut $50,000 and suspended a number of their players for 3 games because of the kind of treatment. And frankly, maybe, just maybe, the WNBA is figuring out this kind of crap can't keep going on because Caitlin Clark is the WNBA, whether anybody likes it or not. And because of that, she has an enforcer to protect her. And that's what's going on, folks, just so you understand all that. You may not like it. You may say, well, we don't need that kind of action in basketball. We probably don't. But we didn't need it in hockey. We didn't need it in baseball. We don't need it in football or any other sport. But in the WNBA, well, unfortunately, it exists. And it takes someone like Miss Sophie Cunningham to put a stop to it. And let's hope in the future this stops. It has to stop. Because the number of flagrant fouls called against one person, Caitlin Clark has got them all. Because people don't like what she's doing, don't like who she is, or maybe don't like the color of her skin. I don't care. This is women's basketball. And you know what? It's entertaining. And people watch. And people want to watch. And frankly, it's kind of fun to watch. I enjoy it. Maybe you do too. But now you know what's going on. Maybe the WNBA is starting to crack down, and well, they should. And they might want to start by taking a look at some of the referees and whether they're really fair. Just one man's opinion, and that's me. Well, as you know, around the United States, when the Army was celebrating its 250th anniversary, there were groups called the Not Kings groups, and all around the United States. Well, they were running their little show, their demonstration, if you will, saying, hey, we're against whatever Trump is doing, his administration is doing. Well, in New York City, the New York Immigration Coalition National Group, NYIC, I believe it's called, staged a rally in New York. And you can see those kind of people at the rally. And they invited a couple of folks to come up and visit them from California. And apparently 2 stars flew in from California on their private jet. One of them was a gentleman by the name of Mark Ruffalo. Apparently Mark Ruffalo is in a movie series called The Avengers. I haven't seen the series at all, but apparently he's one of the Avengers taking on bad stuff in the world. Well, he was there with Susan Sarandon. And he claimed that billionaires and white people are creating the country's problems, not immigrants. And I went, really? Is that a fact? He said Trump's immigration policies, saying the immigrants and the administration are targeting, those people targeted by the bad people, the ones who have committed crimes, the ones who we want out. Because you remember, they emptied their prisons, places like Guatemala, Nicaragua. They emptied the prisons, sent them to the United States. We want them out. Well, he said they're targeting good people, while wealthy Americans, white people, are the ones committing the crimes. Well, let's see, billionaires. I believe that Mark Ruffalo's worth is approximately $90 million. Now, that doesn't make him a billionaire, but it certainly makes him a multimillionaire. And I would say he's earning a lot more money than, any of us are currently doing, unless you're one of those people earning millions yourself. But he was with the No Kings protesters in a mass, and he was fighting the deportation programs that are going on here in the United States. We're getting the bad people out. Well, during his interview with the NYIC, he claimed that Trump and the conservatives are scapegoating immigrants for the problems created by the Americans' majority population. Majority population, folks, are white people. Oh, and billionaires. He said, first of all, we understand the immigrants aren't the current criminals, he said. If you look at the stats, most of the crimes committed in this country are committed by white people, not immigrants. Really? Well, the fact that white people are the majority of people that exist, statistically, that's probably what you're going to have. But if you take a look at the subgroups, the crimes committed in the subgroups, as a percentage of their subgroup, it might paint a different picture. He said that immigrants are adding to the economy by billions. And then he finally went on to say the following. Sadly, today, Donald Trump and the administration of billionaires, crackpots, and ICE brigades have taken over. We have a king in his court and his beige henchmen, and they're trampling on our rights and our laws and our freedoms and making themselves richer with taxpayer dollars and making us less safe with their love of other kings and dictators, the likes of Putin, Netanyahu, and Kim Jong-un. He's saying that Bibi Netanyahu is a king or a dictator? Really? That's news to me because I think he's been elected by his people in Israel. But, so Marky Mark Ruffalo goes on to New York, speaks in front of a group, but I want you to see what this group actually wants. I want you to see this, pay very close attention to this picture. This shows you exactly what they want. And that should be more telling than anything else you could think of, because it fits the scenario of what they want to do for the Democrats and their folks to take back power once again and never, ever relinquish it. That is their goal, to be in power forever. And this is how they're going to do it. And you're seeing it before your very eyes. And I hope you pay attention. So how many times on a weekend you kind of get up and family's looking around for something to do? Maybe it's a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, and mom and the family says, hey, let's all go to a restaurant for breakfast on a Sunday morning. Sounds like a good plan, right? Well, it depends on where you go. IHOP, you can go to Denny's or wherever you want to go for breakfast. And Waffle House, hey, who knows? But out in California, a gentleman by the name of John Tolkien decided he would take his family for a nice Sunday breakfast to Disneyland. Now, I didn't know Disneyland had breakfast, but apparently at the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa in Disneyland West, that's in, California, he took himself, his two kids, his wife, and I think his mother-in-law, all went out for a nice breakfast at Disneyland. Well, turns out they went into this restaurant, and the restaurant fee per person for a Sunday nice breakfast, Sunday morning, was $142 per person. You heard me right. Breakfast was $142 per person. Now, what do you get? Well, apparently you get a nice opening thing. You get a 3-tier tower with things like lobster rolls and cornbread and beignets or whatever. And then if you want to have your scrambled eggs and your mac and cheese or whatever kids eat, that was their breakfast. Now, the nice part about this particular adventure, the Disney princesses come and talk to them, play with the kids, whatever. And you get paying $142 a person, plus some additional add-ons for things that you get. You got to go, well, I want to have coffee, or I want to have tea, or the kids want to have a lemonade, or whatever. That gets added on to the $142. Well, when all was said and done and they finished their breakfast at the Disney Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, he was presented the bill. And he ended up putting a tip on it. And I can tell you right now, if you notice, the tip he left was $150 because his bill totaled up to, are you ready? $937.65 to take mom, the mother-in-law, and the kids out for a Sunday breakfast. I don't know about you, but I think it'd be a tad bit cheaper if you went to the IHOP. Just a tad bit cheaper. Heck, even the Waffle House if you had to. May not be the nicest place, but it's going to be a whole lot cheaper than $937.65. But it just goes to show you. I guess if you want to have the Disney experience, you're going to pay. Every year, Disney hauls in $67 billion. You heard me right. Disney parks make $67 billion. And I guess that's why the Disney empire is so big, so powerful, and owns so many different entities. Because people want to go to the mouse. And if people are willing to spend $142 per person for breakfast, plus additional add-on fees, that's their call. I don't know about you, but if I'm going to spend $1,000, I think I'm going to use that as a vacation to go someplace. Heck, I'll probably get the breakfasts a lot cheaper than I'm doing at Disney. Nothing saying bad about Disney, but let's be honest. If you got money, you're going to spend it. Where you spend it all depends upon what you decide is a good value for your dollar. Something to think about if you're planning on attending some ritzy, high-class place like Disney World. Just saying. My thoughts. Well, in case you haven't heard, the United Supreme Court just came down with a major, and I mean major ruling, involving the specific banning of medical treatment for adolescents in a particular state, this one being Tennessee, that does not discriminate against the 14th Amendment. In a 6-3 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court said the Tennessee law that bans medical treatment for adolescents using drugs and those kind of things to change a kid's identity, what he thinks he is or she is, well, Tennessee's law is legal, and they can do it. And it's telling every other state in the United States that if you allow medical treatments from doctors to be able to give kids all sorts of medical and blockers and things of that ilk to change their sex from what Mother Nature and God intended them to be when they were born, it ain't legal. And they have knocked it down. Now, the justices ruled 6-3. The 6 ruled in favor of the Tennessee law, and the 3, who are liberal justices, said no, it's up to the parents to decide, or the kids to decide what sex they think of themselves to be. This came from a Tennessee law, Senate Bill 1, which, quote, prohibits all medical treatments intended to allow a minor to identify with or live as a reported identity inconsistent with a minor's sex, or to treat purportedly discomfort or distress from the discordance between a minor's sex and asserted identity. What's all that say? Well, gee, I was born a boy, but I think I'm a girl. Or I was born a girl and I think I'm a boy, and I want to have medication to change that. The court said young people can't do that, and that's against the law. And the liberal justices who are against it said, well, it's up to the parents to decide. Well, look, here's the thing. The courts and the government has decided many things about young people, what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Are you allowed to enter a legal contract under the age of 18? No! We set driving limits at the age of 16, and frankly, a 16-year-old behind a car with wheel is about the most dangerous thing you could think of. Trust me. I know, because I was one of those. Do we allow kids to drink at 18, 16? No, the law says 21. And here's one that really gets them. The government sets the law that says what age we can take young men and make them serve in the military and die for their country. It's called a draft. You still have to register for it. don't have it anymore, but that's the way it used to be. And we're the same government that said, oh, we can draft women or we can draft men, but we cannot draft women. After all, it's not right. So the government does set rules involving young people. In this case, they're saying, hey, you doctors out there, you prescribers, you don't go messing with this and give blockers and all kinds of drugs and what have you to kids. They're saying no. And this goes for the entire United States of America. Now, many states, and Indiana's one of those, that already says, no, we're not allowing this. But other states do. And now those other states are told, sorry, you ain't doing this. What Mother Nature is what Mother Nature is. You're either X chromosomes or Y chromosomes. And that's what you're born with. You have a man, a woman. Anything else ain't legitimate. It is what it is. Now, here's the bigger deal. This ruling is now going to set in stage what could be other rulings coming down that deal with, well, men playing in women's sports. Yeah, because now the court said, hey, you can't do this puberty blocking stuff. Can't change women into men and men into women. And they think it's going to be the precursor to what they're going to say about men playing in women's sports and men using women's bathrooms. That's what's coming up. But right now, the courts have said, sorry, the 14th Amendment, equal protection, does not apply in this case because what Mother Nature is what Mother Nature is. You're either a man or you're a woman. And you can't alter them just because someone thinks they are something that they aren't. That's the law, folks. Supreme Court has spoken. Let's wait and see what happens with the other things involving issues that are going on that, frankly, are not fun for anybody. Just something to think about. New law, new Supreme Court, a new move. Let's see how it purports to the rest of the nation. You know, many years ago, something happened at gas stations that got people's attention. Turns out that bad guys have figured out a way to put in a gizmo when you're plugging in your credit card into the gas station pump. It would read your card. It was a skimmer. That's what they called it, a skimmer. Well, that was a thing that went on. They were skimming your card, whatever you're using, your bank card, your gas card, whatever card it happened to be. They were skimming that data off your card. Well, the public realized what was going on, and eventually the gas stations and many grocery stores and what have you now use the tap and pay method. And I'm sure you've probably seen that. You just take your card and you tap it on this site that particularly says that whether it's Apple or what have you. You tap the site with your card, it reads the electronic metal tag in your card, and everything has happened. You're not sliding your card through a slider and having the information pulled off. Well, that was one of the latest things that the bad guys. You got to understand, bad guys are going to try every trick in the book to abscond your information, to get the information that is on your credit card or having done with your bank account or whatever it is. They're going to try to get that information and use it to, well, steal from you. That's what bad guys do. Well, the latest thing is, if you go to an airport, let's say you travel, and you go to the airport, you got your phone. A lot of people do this. Your flight gets delayed, you got your phone, so you plug it into a spot in the airport. One of those panels they have where you can plug your phone in and get your phone all charged and everything and make your phone work. The problem is the bad guys have now figured out how to go into that one too. And what they've done is they've installed the stuff in in those particular boards that place malware onto your phone. And once they get malware onto your phone, they can start digging in there and getting all sorts of information out. Your credit card information, your banking information, your password information. They can get it all. And that's one of the things that they can do nowadays because they're becoming more and more sophisticated. Yeah, you kind of beat them by taking away the skimmers that they were using at the gas stations. Because now you walk over to a gas pump, you kind of grab it and pull it, see if it's an artificial skimmer in there. But you got the tap and pay. Tap and pay works just dandy. But the problem now with the airports, plug it into a board and get the malware on your computer. So what they're saying is, hey, take a charger with you. Now I'm going to show you a couple of chargers. Here's what I have. This one's got different plugs in it. You can use USB or C plugs or what have you. It's a charger. And all you do is charge this thing up, you carry it with you, and it'll charge your phone up. That's one version. Here's another version, a little bit different. Looks like a little brick thing, but plug that in, charge your phone up, and you're fine. Probably not a bad thing to buy. And frankly, if you're going to be buying one of these, I'm going to suggest a place to go. Normally, I don't recommend Amazon, but in this case, they do carry a whole lot of these chargers that you can use, charge your phone up. And Amazon's got a whole variety of them at different pricing levels. So you can take a look and see what you want. Yes, there's probably other places you can go to. You can go to Temu if you want. That's perfectly fine. But I happen to figure out Amazon has a great quantity of different ones to utilize. And there's another thing for you to think about. Don't be using public Wi-Fi. In a lot of places, you go and say, well, we got public Wi-Fi at some particular location, some stores. Oh, we have Wi-Fi available for you to use. Keep in mind, the hackers can hack into that because you're on the network and they can dump stuff in, like the malware kind of stuff, into your phone or your tablet or whatever you're using on public Wi-Fi places. Once again, it's a place to be cautious because the bad guys are saying, we're going to get your stuff and you're going to make it easy by plugging into the wrong things. It's something to consider in today's world. It doesn't make it great. It doesn't mean it's fabulous, but you have to protect yourself because people are out trying to steal your stuff. And recently it was announced that one of the biggest data breaches from Google and Yahoo and Apple and everybody else happened. Massive data breach, about what? Millions of passwords were set up with people who happen to have Apple or Google or what have you. And the breach is so big, they haven't really figured out just how bad it is yet. So they're saying you may have to change all your passwords, your Google accounts, your Apple accounts, or Yahoo's got whatever accounts you have. You have to change the passwords because data breach. That's the problem we have in today's world. Bad guys are looking to get into places they shouldn't be, and they're smart enough to get in. And once they get in, they're taking your data. You don't want that. Be safe, folks. Don't make those kind of mistakes. It can come up and bite you. In the long run, it's a lot better to be safe than sorry. When President Donald Trump wanted to appoint Robert Kennedy as the director of the Health and Human Services Division, Bureau, call him what you will, secretary, there was a huge dust up going on, and Democrats were doing everything in their power to make sure he didn't get in there because Bobby Kennedy doesn't like additional stuff into food additives, things being put into your food, things that you eat, your kids eat. And the Democrats were fighting that fiercely. Why? Well, you better ask the Democrats who is funding their campaigns, what lobbyists are funding them. That might explain to you why they were fighting it. Didn't matter. He still became the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And what he has done is starting to make a major change in the way you eat foods. Turns out that Kraft food giant, is removing all their artificial colors and from their brands, including the dyes. You know, a lot of this stuff is based on petroleum stuff, petroleum-based dyes. Yeah, Kraft Foods is getting rid of a whole lot of that stuff and things like their mac and cheese, the Heinz ketchup, the Jell-O, the Capri Sun drinks. And here's even a bigger one that just came down. You ever eat Skittles? I mean, the candy Skittles? Hey, I have. I think I was brought up on Skittles. Skittles been around since 1949. Skittles, turns out they use titanium dioxide, another chemical to make them look shiny. Jolly Ranchers. I like Jolly Ranchers. These have additives in it, and Kennedy said those can't be, you can't have them. The country of England has outlawed all those candies and those foods from the United States that contain all that stuff. People in England said, we ain't eating that stuff. Our kids aren't eating that stuff. And I don't know about the obesity rates that exist in England, but I'm guessing here in the United States, our obesity rates are a lot higher than they are in England because England doesn't allow all these additives in their food. Well, now Ted Kennedy is saying, or Bobby Kennedy rather, is saying that enough's enough. And these companies are starting to listen. And they're starting to take the additives out of their food, namely Kraft, namely the people who make Jolly Hershey's. Hershey's getting rid of the dyes and the chemicals and the artificial things in their candies. Going back to the natural stuff. You want plants to make colors? That's fine. But using petroleum parts, petroleum distillates in the candy, you wonder why our kids are getting sick. You wonder why our kids are obese. And you wonder why our kids are suffering from things like ADHD and autism and whatever. Maybe, I'm just saying maybe, it's because of the stuff that's being put into our food. Back in the 70s, when I was younger, nobody was overweight. Nobody was. Well, occasionally you see somebody. But today, what, over half of America is overweight? Where's that coming from? And the autism among kids, I never saw that growing up. That was a foreign word to most of us growing up. Didn't exist. Now it's common. Where's it coming from? What is creating this in our children? Is it the additives that are put into the food, the colorings, the dyes? According to Bobby Kennedy, yes, it is. Now, you can argue with him all you want to, but the fact that Heinz and Hershey are starting to take all their stuff out of the foods that you and I eat and the candies you and I consume, it's telling volumes, folks. It's telling volumes. Maybe the U.S. is finally starting to turn around and go back to sanity. Not that we were insane, but we sure weren't paying attention. And now you understand. Rarely do I get to talk about a new business opening up in Fort Wayne simply because, well, I don't normally do that sort of thing. But this time I'm going to talk about something opening up which is rather unusual, and that's why I'm talking about it. You know, for the longest time, when I would drive to work every morning and drive back every afternoon, working over there by the near Canterbury Green, that particular area, northeast side of town, St. Joe Center area, drive by this little building, and it was in Rivera Plaza, which is on the north side of St. Joe Center Road, right next to St. Joe Road. It's this little tiny building, and I thought it was like an ATM machine back in the old days when they were called the Owl Banks, if you remember that. And that has been a number of businesses over the years, and a waffle thing I remember one time, and chicken, and well, tiny spot. You know, it looks like it's almost like a ticket booth at a drive-in theater. Well, a gentleman by the name of George Baronis decided he was going to make a restaurant out of it. It's not really a restaurant, but a Mr. Sandwich. I know that sounds kind of weird, and you're going to say, what? How's he going to do that in that little tiny thing? I don't know. But I looked at his menu, and you can look at the menu too because it's MrSandwichMenu.com. Check it out for yourself. This guy's got sandwiches and salads and soups and desserts. I don't know where he makes all this stuff. I really don't know. But he's going to be selling it out of that business, and that's getting ready to open. It's got a soft opening coming up, and it's going to be coming up next week. So, if you're looking for a place to get a nice lunch from, and frankly, I'm looking for that because normally I might go to a fast food restaurant or a sandwich shop or something like that. But hey, having a custom-made sandwich, you know, like a Cubano, paninis, whatever, this guy can make some. And if you take a look at all the things that he has available for you to try, I don't know how he does it in that small facility. But looking at the menu, I'm saying he's got some great stuff worth trying. So, if you've never heard of the place before, I'm telling you where you might want to think about getting something for lunch. Hey, you can order, you can order it in advance, give him a call, do it online, whatever works for you. But Mr. Sandwich and Mr. Baronis thinks really that he's going to succeed because he took out a 10-year lease on that little tiny ticket booth, making his stuff inside. I don't know how he does it, and frankly, I'm not here to ask. But if that food is as good as it looks, I think Mr. George Baronis has tapped into a pretty doggone good idea. Riviera Plaza, St. Joe and St. Joe Center, a little small place. You think, how could he do that? I don't know, folks. But looking at the menu, and you can take a look for yourself. He's got some great things on there, probably worthy of trying. And if you like it, I suggest you tell your friends. I always like to support a small business. And this business is really small. I mean, tiny. If he can do it, good for him. Mr. Sandwich, over in Rivera Plaza, St. Joe at St. Joe Center, right across from the Marketplace of Canterbury. It's like a building you've seen there a long time, and now it's opening up and becoming Mr. Sandwich. Check it out online. Check it out for yourself. They're opening soon. Get yourself maybe a panini while you're there. Mr. Sandwich, give it a shot.